Hey guys, it's the Metal 5, and welcome to my response to Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE's Censorship. Yet another different type of response to the ones I've done before. Now, of course, this isn't the first time I've mentioned Tokyo Mirage Sessions, or Shin Megami Tensei Cross Fire Emblem as it was originally known as, since I talked about looking forward to the game back in my unpopular opinions video, where I mentioned that I was concerned that the game would be censored, which I then talked about in my E3 Impressions video. The game has come out, and I have played it, although I haven't gotten very far at this point since I only got the game around mid-August and have been kind of busy. So in case you're curious on my thoughts of the game, while it is probably the weirdest game I have ever played in my life, the actual gameplay and combat is very enjoyable and strategic, and the soundtrack is awesome. But any Nintendo fans watching this video will probably know that the international versions of Tokyo Mirage Sessions are heavily censored in really stupid ways. So even though I was debating with myself before if I should get the game since I don't want to support Nintendo censoring their games in this ridiculous fashion, I decided to get the game anyway, since if the European version is censored, which it is, I could just make a video about how dumb it is. But before we begin, I should explain my stance on censorship in video games. I'm perfectly fine with some aspects of games being censored if they may be deemed as inappropriate or offensive in other countries. But everything else I hate, because not only does it go against the creator's original intention, but it makes me feel like I'm getting a watered down version of a game. But anyway, let's get to the game's premise. So, Tokyo Mirage Sessions is a JRPG developed by Atlus and published by Nintendo for the Wii U, which merges aspects of Atlus's Shin Megami Tensei series and Nintendo's Fire Emblem series, the latter of which longtime viewers will know I'm a fan of, into a game that heavily focuses on idol culture, which is this thing in Japan where teenagers are marketed by their cuteness and trained to become performers, and is the reason why Japan has quite a few young singers and bands. As such, the game revolves around a group of teenagers who all want to become performers, except for Itsuki, but end up in this other dimension where Fire Emblem characters are crossing over into the real world, and the teens become Mirage Masters, where they fuse with their respective Fire Emblem character and take on aspects of that character's class. For example, Itsuki fuses with Chrom to gain aspects of a lord. I told you this game was fucking weird, but when it came to this game being released in the West, despite Atlus hand localization, Nintendo America supervised it and decided to become the 4Kids of video games and remove or tone down a lot of stuff in the game in dumb ways. And as such, this has affected all versions of the game outside of Japan. Getting to the actual censorship. The best starting point is to talk about the first piece of censorship that was confirmed for the game, and the only one at the time of me making my unpopular opinions video. In the early parts of the game, there was a cutscene where one of the characters, Kiria, who is a singer, performs her song Reincarnation, which acts as sort of the main theme of the game, and is a really catchy song in my opinion. When the game was first being shown off, even at E3 2015, the scene showed that Kiria's outfit in the scene exposed her underwear. But later on, this scene was censored so that her entire bottom half is covered up. Now, apparently I've heard this was actually censored in the Japanese version as well, but I haven't found any footage of it. But I still find it to be a bit of a dumb form of censorship, mainly because I don't think Kiria's underwear would have affected the game's rating, since, for one, it's part of a stylized outfit, and second is that this game has a T rating in the US and a 12 rating in Europe. And I've seen characters in other games with those ratings that wear outfits kind of like Kiria's, so I found it unnecessary. Now, the other bits of censorship that were confirmed after my unpopular opinions video came from an English demo being showed off about a month or two before the game came out, in which the first form of censorship revealed was that in the English version, the characters have been aged up by 1 year. So characters who were 17 in the Japanese version are 18 in the English version, and they even got the Japanese voice actors to re-record the lines to say their actual ages. This kind of censorship doesn't bother me too much, since it's only by 1 year. If it was like 4 or something, I would definitely be bothered by it. And because some of the characters do wear revealing clothing, which may be deemed inappropriate in America, where the age of consent is 18. Although I don't see why that should be the case for the UK version, since the age of consent here is 16. Because we're awesome! Except when it comes to referendums, then we're fucking stupid. My bigger issue with the censorship is the fact that they also censor some of the revealing clothing despite aging up the characters. It makes sense to do one or the other, but not both! Okay, So that censorship doesn't seem so bad, but this is where the game's censorship gets fucking ridiculous. This game's censorship is at least on the same level of being inconsistent and hypocritical as Street Fighter V's censorship, where it's okay to have Laura wear barely any clothing, but Armika slapping her butt is deemed uncomfortable. For one, at the end of the second chapter of the game, you battle Aversa, who, as you can probably tell, is showing a bit of cleavage. Before you battle her, there was a cutscene where she flies down from the top of the Shibuya 106 building, which is based on the Shibuya 109 building in Tokyo, in which Itsuki, Tsubasa, and Toma follow suit. In the English version of the game, Aversa's cleavage is covered by conveniently placed black smoke. Not only is this probably the laziest form of censorship I have ever seen, but during the actual gameplay, Aversa's cleavage is fully visible. They only censored it for that one cutscene. This is so fucking hypocritical. As I said before, this game has a 12 rating in Europe. So if Aversa's cleavage didn't affect the game's rating in the gameplay, then it's not going to affect the rating in the cutscenes. Also, all the Fire Emblem characters in this game are either from the first Fire Emblem game, Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light, or from Awakening. And in Awakening, Aversa shows just as much cleavage as she does in this game. And what do you know? Awakening also got a 12 rating in Europe. Because Europe aren't a bunch of pussies like America. We're allowed to see Farge's ass. We're allowed to put towels on our women and fates. And we're allowed to... Oh wait, we don't have the petting game either. Moving on to more censorship, which seems to primarily focus on Tsubasa for some reason. Shortly after that English demo was being showed off at conventions, it was revealed that one of the game's cutscenes which focuses on Tsubasa was censored. I mentioned this in my E3 video, but it bears repeating. Before battling another boss who likes to take pictures of women, Tsubasa distracts him by switching clothes to a bikini and modeling for him to symbolize her overcoming her fears. However, in the English version, the bikini was removed and replaced by this god-awful looking gangster in the hood outfit. Not only does this outfit look fucking dreadful, which makes me wonder why the photographer would be so infatuated with it, but as I said in my E3 video, I've seen plenty of bikinis when on holiday, and there are other games like fighting games where characters can wear bikinis as alternate costumes, and they also have a T/12 rating. So I'm pretty sure Tsubasa's bikini wouldn't have affected the game's rating. Plus, it completely changes the meaning of the scene. Rather than developing Tsubasa's character so that she overcomes her fears and shy nature of this kind of stuff, is instead replaced with her being more comfortable with modeling. Also, the entire dungeon that this photographer boss is encountered in has photos of girls in bikinis plastered all over the walls, and as you can guess, this was changed to ordinary clothes in the English version. The whole idea of this dungeon and the bikinis is that it's based on gravure modeling, which is another part of idol culture where female idols attempt to sexually arouse their audience. Some could argue that this may have been the real reason for the censorship rather than the bikinis, as another thing that was censored was the poses Tsubasa makes when modeling. But when I see a bikini, I don't think about sex, and the poses that Tsubasa makes are no different than what you would expect from a regular model wearing regular clothes. Even in the English reveal trailer for this game, it shows Tsubasa in the scene with her in a bikini. It's a different bikini to what is in the final version, but still, they were fine showing a bikini to the English audience, so why were they so sensitive when it came to actually localizing the game? Like, they could have removed that part in, like, the English trailer. Furthermore, this isn't the only instance of bikinis and gravure modeling being censored. Maiko, one of the other characters in the game who acts as sort of a teacher to the teens, used to be a gravure model, and you find magazines of this later in the game. As you can imagine at this point, this was replaced with regular modeling. Like with my previous point, when looking at the uncensored magazine, Maiko isn't really making any poses different to a real model, and it certainly wouldn't be something that would give the game an 18 rating. Similarly, at another point in the game, Tsubasa, Maiko, and Eleonora take part in a group gravure session in bikinis, which were replaced with the dumb gangster in the hood outfits. Again, none of the uncensored photos appear to be any different or any more sexual than normal modeling. Continuing on the subject of bikinis, the Japanese version had a hot spring DLC, which not only gave you swimsuit outfits for all the playable characters, including the men, but it also would let you view scenes of the characters in a hot spring. This DLC was completely removed for the English version, which once again is dumb for the reason I brought up earlier. especially when you get to see the men in their swimsuits too. And this DLC is very similar to Fire Emblem Awakening's Summer Scramble DLC, which let you see Chrom, Gaius, Cordelia, and Farja in swimsuits. While Farja's was censored in the American version, like I said earlier, everyone else's weren't, meaning that in other games, Nintendo are fine with putting characters in swimsuits. And again, this didn't affect the game's rating. Do you want to know what the best part of all this bikini censorship is? Another feature of the game, which also links to idol culture, is that the characters can star in adverts for in-game products. For example, Tsubasa stars in an advert on a soft drink which takes place on a beach. And she's wearing the bikini that was censored everywhere else! No joke! This image isn't from the Japanese version. This is the English version. They were perfectly fine putting the bikini in the game, but removed it in other scenes. Like with reverse cleavage, this is so fucking hypocritical. And again, it shows it doesn't affect the game's rating. Continuing on with more censorship on Tsubasa, in one of Tsubasa's music videos titled Feel, she wears an outfit that is basically a bra and shorts. In the English version, this was changed to be more akin to a sports bra, but still covering up cleavage, and even removing a bra strap that only appears for like 1 second in the song. Also, they removed a V-line around Tsubasa's waist that's supposed to show the lower abdomen. Nintendo removed Tsubasa's vagina! Once again, this piece of censorship is very hypocritical because within the exact same music video, Tsubasa shows up in her battle outfit when fused with Sita on a Pegasus, and this outfit exposes the exact same amount of cleavage as the uncensored outfit in the video! Are you fucking kidding me? No, seriously, are you fucking kidding me, Nintendo? This outfit showing the same cleavage is okay! This really is Street Fighter V censorship! Another one of Tsubasa's music videos, she wears a wedding dress, which revealed a little bit of skin. Keyword, a little, which, as we know, Nintendo of America is offended by minor things like this. But they didn't change the dress. Instead, they painted Tsubasa's skin white. No joke. Not only did the uncensored outfit show little skin to begin with, especially compared to the other outfits in the game in both the English and Japanese versions, but wedding dresses come in many different designs, and in other forms of media, I have seen wedding dresses in a similar style to the one Tsubasa is wearing in the Japanese version. So why the fuck was this such a big issue? And as far as I'm aware, that is every major bit of censorship that I could find in the game. There are a few minor bits of censorship, such as the fact that you can't see the underwear of the female characters when performing acrobatic moves, which was only like for 2 frames of animation or something, and these humanoid enemies being given clothes, which I think is dumb since while they're humanoid, they aren't human like the other enemies in the game, and they don't even have tits, so what was the fucking point? But for this last part of the video, I want to talk about the statement Nintendo of America gave regarding this game's censorship, being that it was due to the varying requirements and regulations in the many different territories Nintendo distributes its products. This explanation is fucking stupid. Nintendo, have you ever heard of the phrase, if you attempt to please everybody, you effectively please nobody? Because that perfectly sums up this reasoning. Nintendo of America are trying to please all the countries that Nintendo games are released in, but as a result, piss off people like me who live in countries where these things uncensored aren't an issue at all. Seriously, Nintendo, not every single game you make has to be designed to appeal to every country, since plenty of Nintendo games have had changes or censorship in specific countries or region, not worldwide. For example, in Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, Registeel's sprite was changed in Europe because it looked like it was doing the Nazi salute. And similarly, in Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, one of Mario's hand gestures was removed in the European version because it also looked like the Nazi salute. Nintendo, why didn't you just leave each country the game was going to be released in do their own censorship where they see fit? This means that countries that have stricter rules on showing skin or revealing clothing can censor the outfits, while countries where that isn't an issue can keep them uncensored rather than thus being stuck with something so childish. All this censorship has done is just alienate the target audience of the game, being teenagers at minimum, rather than appealing to every region you release your games. If this was a kid's game, then I would kind of understand the censorship, but it isn't, and even if it was a kid's game, kids wouldn't understand this game at all because of how fucking weird it is. Plus, it still doesn't excuse how fucking hypocritical the censorship actually is. And I'm not complaining about the censorship because I can't look at the girls in bikinis or anything like that since they aren't real. I'm complaining because I feel like I own a watered-down version of a game, and it goes against the intentions and the image the creators had in mind. There's this common view that Nintendo games are just for children, which is bullshit since games like Fire Emblem, Metroid, and even some Zelda games like Twilight Princess are definitely for more mature audiences. I mean, Nintendo even published Eternal Darkness and Bayonetta 2. And, as a kid, back in school, I had to pretend that I had a PlayStation 3 or Xbox 360 so that I wouldn't be bullied or become an outcast because I like Nintendo. And this censorship just reinforces this idea that Nintendo were just for children or family-friendly markets. I'm not trying to say Tokyo Mirage Sessions is bad, since so far I think the game is great, but the censorship puts a big stain on mine and other people's views of the game, since it just shows how sensitive Nintendo of America are, especially when their version of the game becomes the base for all other versions outside of Japan. But with that out of the way, I'll see you guys for my next response video, which will be my 1,000 subscriber response video that I'll announce at the end of my channel history video.